Good morning, everyone, and welcome to SDAC. I'm Bobby Dutta. I co-chair SDAC. Please know that this event is being recorded for later broadcast on YouTube. Before I proceed with the presentation, we have a couple of quick housekeeping rules to go over for the virtual event. To avoid an echo, please be sure to mute speakers and microphones on one device if using multiple devices. If you do not hear the echo, then you are most likely the one that causing the echo, so please check. If not speaking or asking a question, please mute your microphone. Please ask questions using the chat functions, and items will be addressed in the order that they're received. Thank you. Now, to kick off our event, we have a very distinguished keynote speaker at SDAC. Today, we have Director Dee Dee Myers. Dee Dee Myers is Senior Advisor to Governor Newsom and Director of the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. She brings more than 3 decades of experience in strategic communication, public affairs, corporate governance, and social responsibility in both public and private sectors. Recently, she received an Executive Vice President post in the worldwide corporate communication of Warner Brothers. Ms. Myers served as White House Press Secretary for the first term of President Bill Clinton and the first woman to hold the position. After leaving the office, she worked for Vanity Fair. She is also a best-selling author of book, Why Women Should Rule the World, and served as a consultant on the Emmy-winning drama, you might remember this from when, West Wing. She served as a press secretary for Dianne Feinstein and worked on the presidential campaign of Michael Dukakis and Vice President Walter Mondale. Now, she also worked on staff of Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley and California State Senator Art Torres. Myers also served on board of directors for Wynn Resorts International, a publicly traded 500 company. She serves on the board of Smithsonian National Museum of American Natural History and Mayor's Fund for Los Angeles. A graduate of Santa Clara University, she lives in Los Angeles with her husband, Todd Purdom, and their children. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Dee Dee Myers. Director Myers, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Bobby. As you've all heard, I've certainly had a lot of jobs over the decades, and 3 decades of experience means I'm old, but grateful to have had many opportunities to contribute and to serve, including in my current post. I do run the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, and I came to that in an almost in an unusual way. I think as Bobby said, was working at Warner Brothers. When I left that post, the pandemic was just beginning, and so the governor's office reached out to me and asked if I could volunteer to help with the dual crises of the pandemic and the economic crisis that we experienced, particularly in the spring, or beginning in the spring of 2020, because we're still sort of obviously experiencing the aftershocks of that in many ways. And so I was, very happy to be able to step in and to help serve the people of California as a volunteer. And then one thing led to another, and the governor offered me this role, which I've been delighted to take. So it's been a really gratifying experience to help the state and the people of California to get through the pandemic, and we're continuing to get through that, to restore our economy to its vibrancy. We still have a lot of work to do to make sure that recovery is equitable, but we're doing really well. Creating jobs, our economic growth is strong. Thanks, I think, to the governor's investments and to the president's investments in the country. We obviously face a lot of challenges with spiking inflation, supply chain congestion, and other things, but we're hard at work. So I want to say a few words about what the Office of Business and Economic Development does, and then would be happy to take a few questions if people have them, whatever you all feels appropriate. So for some of you probably have heard of the Office of Business and Economic Development, affectionately referred to as GO-Biz. We are the state's leader in job growth and economic development efforts, and we work with communities and organizations around the state. We offer a wide range of services, starting with our business investment services team, which helps companies we provide site selection advice, incentive navigations. We have a lot of incentives in the state to try to allow companies to invest here, create jobs, and grow our economy. We also we have regional representatives around the state who help businesses with that work. We have the Office of the Small Business Advocate because small businesses are the backbone of our economy. We have more than 4 million small businesses here in the state, and so supporting them and helping them thrive and succeed and become the sort of the centerpiece, the center of gravity for so many of our communities is critical. So we've certainly been doing that very busily during the pandemic to provide the services and grants for our small business community to continue to do well, and it's come back strongly, but we still have a lot of work to do. We provide tax incentives for mostly larger businesses that are looking to expand their operations in California, or sometimes they're looking out of state, and we want to make sure they stay here, again, providing those high quality jobs and the investment in California that will allow our economy to remain strong and vibrant. We have an international team because California is the #1 source of foreign direct investment in the United States, not surprisingly. We have great relationships with countries around the world. Japan is our #1 source of foreign direct investment. The UK is close behind, as well as obviously Mexico and Canada and many other countries around the world. So that's a very important, California is something of a nation state. So we deal directly with the leadership in other countries, as well as working with our Department of Commerce, the United States Department of Commerce, and others to make sure that we're doing all we can to attract investment and to support businesses and to support our international community here, both residents and people who come here to help us, again, invest in our economy. We are the place where we're developing the market strategy for zero emissions vehicles, making sure that California has the infrastructure and the support for equitable growth of our zero emissions vehicles sector. We've been really successful at that. California has led the nation with the vast, almost half of all zero emissions cars sold in the United States are sold here in California. That's not an accident. We were ahead of the curve on that, providing incentives, providing partnership, providing the regulatory environment that allowed that sector to thrive and grow. And now American car makers are joining the rush to create zero emission vehicles across the spectrum so that more people can adopt. And that's obviously critical to us meeting our clean air and climate goals. And certainly the last week has really re-emphasized, not that we needed to be re-emphasized, but really re-emphasized how quickly climate is impacting everybody around the world and in very dangerous ways. We have something called our Infrastructure and Development Bank, the iBank. And the iBank provides low-cost loans to both private and public entities who are seeking to build or expand in some capacity. Very successful. We host the California Film Commission, and again, we provide incentives to our entertainment industry to make sure we keep those high-quality production jobs here in California. That's been very successful over recent years. We are the entertainment capital of the world, and we want to keep it that way. A lot of states are trying to draw away our industry and our production and our jobs, and we're not going to stand by and let that happen without a good fight. So we continue to be the entertainment capital of the world and very proud of it. And we have Visit California, which is a nonprofit organization that helps support the tourism industry here in California through marketing and other supports, brings together the leadership of all the businesses that support visitors in California, from hotels to restaurants to rental cars to venues, you name it. And so we work very closely with those partners to make sure that California remains a great place to visit. We think we have the most beautiful state in the country with the most interesting attractions, and we want to make sure the rest of the country and the rest of the world knows about it. Obviously, in the pandemic, we saw particularly international travel decrease, but the good news was we saw Californians traveling more frequently in our state and experiencing all the wonderful opportunities and sights and beautiful natural wonders that are here. So that's a wide range. Sometimes I call it a dog's breakfast of services, but they all ladder up to one big function, which is to help grow the economy of our state in a way that's forward-looking, that's sustainable, and that's equitable. We want to make sure we create opportunities for all the people of our state, and we're certainly welcome people to come here and join our efforts as we go forward. I'd just like to acknowledge how much we value what you do, what the statewide Disability Advisory Council does. We really appreciate being able to participate in the council forum so we can learn more about what's going on in the disability community and at other agencies in order to advance and support the rights and opportunity of those with disabilities. It's very important to us at GO-Biz. And I'd like to acknowledge Pamela Race, who became our brand new Disability Advisory Committee representative from GO-Biz. Pam is a budget analyst in our group who helped assist with our $2.3 billion budget, which just wrapped up last month. Her job is important to us, and so is her participation in the council. I'd also like to acknowledge Pam's predecessor, our last DAC representative, Judy Purnell-Stevens, who participated on the council for 3 years. And what Judy was able to bring back to GO-Biz was really invaluable. And we look forward to what Pam will be able to do in keeping us up to date and engaged in and advancing the council's key priorities. I'd also like to acknowledge our partnership with the California Highway Patrol, who helps coordinate our participation with the council. So thank you to the CHP. And finally, we look forward to celebrating National Disability Employment Awareness Month in October with all of you. So with that, thank you so much for having me, and I'll turn it back to Bobby and happy to answer questions for anyone who might have any.
Great, thank you so much. That was very informative. We learned a lot about GO-Biz, and the question that came in the chat is, I've read that there is a low adoption of tax incentive to promote hiring of disabled person. Does your agency promote these tax incentives? Essentially, they're asking whether or not there's tax incentives involved in hiring person with disabilities.
We absolutely provide a wide range of incentives, and we across the state promote the use and uptake of those incentives. Sometimes that's challenging because people don't know about them, which means we need to promote them better. And sometimes people aren't eligible for them because people on the lower end of the income scale don't have to file tax returns. They don't have to pay taxes. And so taking a tax credit is not an option that's available to them. So we look to support communities in other ways. But yes, we do promote tax credits and incentives, and we can always do better. So if that's feedback that we're getting, we absolutely need to do more. We're always looking to find ways to reach different communities that we serve, including the disability community in new ways. So I think again would be exactly the kind of thing, like what are the best, some of the avenues that you all think would be most useful in making sure we get the word out.
Thank you so much for that very comprehensive response. Appreciate it. You mentioned DAC, which is the Disability Advisory Committee. As you know, all state entities are required to have one. And oftentimes, many state agencies struggle to have a person with disabilities working for them at a parity rate of 16.9. I mentioned that number because that's the number that CalHR recommend each agencies have. Now, as an advisor to the Governor Newsom, are there any discussions or plan to address that deficit that we have within the state entities?
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing conversation across many different communities, including the disability community, to make sure that the different agencies are doing everything they can and need to attract and recruit and retain people, again, from the disability community as well as other communities, to make sure that our state government is representative of the people who live in our state and people who need the services of our state and the people who have a lot to contribute to providing those services. So yes, that's an ongoing conversation. It is an expectation that comes from the governor on down. As you know, the governor is extremely committed to a California for all. to making sure that we create opportunities both in state government and across the state, right, throughout our economy. That's certainly our charge at GO-Biz. But I also think recruitment and hiring is one thing, but we also have to make sure that we're retaining people, that we're providing the kind of opportunities and the support that people with disabilities need to succeed and thrive and provide all that people have to provide for the rest of us. So again, that's another thing we would love to hear, and I know have heard from DAC, which is, are we doing enough to support people who are already in state government to retain and promote and make sure that everybody is successful?
Thank you. And you mentioned that the focus is on retention and promotion of person with disabilities that's already working for the state. And one of the things that's also challenging, and it's a key component, is the reasonable accommodation. Recently, there was this Assembly bill, AB 313, that passed, requires to come up with all state agencies a model reasonable accommodation policy. Oftentimes, the state agencies do not have a separate budget to accommodate or provide tools and things that are necessary to accommodate a person with disabilities. Is there a way to address that problem legislatively, not possibly within your realm of influence with the governor's office?
Yeah, as you note, that is a little outside my area of expertise, but I will say that we work with our legislative partners every day on a wide range of issues, including making sure that state government is accessible to people with disabilities. And so that is, again, something that is an ongoing conversation. Do we have, looking at, those questions that you raised, do we have the appropriate accommodations to make sure, do we have the money to be able to invest in those accommodations if we don't have them, and how can we make them better to include a wider range of people? Again, that's a little outside of my purview, but I can certainly speak broadly for the governor in that this is something that he wants to continue to work with the legislature to advance.
The other follow-up question I have for you, I know you mentioned the zero emission growth, and I'm really happy to hear that California leads in that category of having zero emission vehicles. And there's tax incentive that makes this particular project more successful than other states. Are there any plans to continue on with incentive and perhaps increasing that incentive so everyone can afford to have a zero emission vehicles and not just the Tesla owners?
Exactly, absolutely. And that is a key focus of our market strategy, is how do we ensure that there's equity in zero emissions vehicles, making sure that they're available to broader, to the full spectrum of California drivers. And there are many incentives. There are incentives for vehicle purchase, and those are going to be income targeted, so that they're not just, like you said, that we don't just have Teslas, although Tesla has been very successful and really helped, I think, be a proof of concept that if you build good electric vehicles and a charging network, people will buy them and love them. And so there are incentives, not only there are incentives for people to purchase electric vehicles, but the other component of it is you need a charging network. You need the infrastructure to support those zero emissions vehicles, and we need to make sure that that charging infrastructure is not just in higher income communities, that it's distributed across California, and that is something we're highly focused on, that we're moving very quickly on, working with our partners in the private sector as well as in public sector to make sure that there are charging stations accessible to people, and also things like, you need to make sure you can get those vehicles serviced and things like that. So although it turns out zero emissions vehicles generally need less service than internal combustion engines, so just another reason that we need to make sure they're widely accessible to people. And we're really excited about it because half of emissions in California come from the mobility sector, either from the actual running of cars and trucks, but also the refining of the petroleum products that it takes to fuel them. And so by greatly reducing the number of zero emissions vehicles, we can create clean air for all of our communities. So that's, again, critical. And as you know, the governor signed an executive order a couple years ago in the fall of 2020 that mandated that all new cars sold in California by 2035 will be zero emissions. So we're, again, working with partners across the spectrum on that, making sure that zero emissions vehicles will be accessible to all, and that we can meet our clean air goals to serve the people of California.
Thank you so much. And I know that you're on a very tight deadline. You're very busy, and I'm not going to burden you with additional question that came in the chat. Perhaps you'll come back and visit us another time when you have a little more time so we can fully engage in a robust Q&A. But again, thank you very much for showing up here at SDAC and giving us wealth of information that we certainly, our audience, benefited from all this.
Well, thank you, Bobby. Let me just say again, I'm delighted to be here and to have been able to spend a little time with you. And I would be delighted to come back at some point if that's useful. And thank you for all that SDAC does. And we look forward to continuing our partnership with you, our participation, and not just getting your feedback, but acting on it to make sure that we're providing the support and services that the community needs to thrive in state government, but also, again, to help us provide the wide range of supports we do for the people of California. So thank you and appreciate being here.
Thank you very much. And by the way, how do we provide you with feedback? What's the channel, that mechanism we use? Yeah,
I mean, feel free to reach out to me, but also just through the Disability Advisory Committee, our representative, Pam, will certainly be our eyes and ears, but also, feel free to reach out.
Great.
Always an open door to try to make sure that we're serving people as well as we can.
Thank you so much. You're very generous with your time. And we will certainly invite you back someday soon when you hopefully can spend more time. So thanks again.
So thank you very much. Have a great day.
Have a great day. You too. So that was Dee Dee Myers, very informative presentation.